Welcome back to it, guys. Your Tuesday edition of the Now Morning Show continues as 'tis the season. And so it's only right that we check in with our friends at the Children's Authority of Trinidad and Tobago through psychologist Krista Ali as we are exploring supervision of children during the Christmas holidays. Welcome back, Krista.
Thank you so much for having me.
Always a delight and always necessary because the kids are home.
Yes.
And we are getting ready for that festive season where a lot could happen.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we actually would have had reports in the news just yesterday of a toddler drowning, and I mean, supervision was a big part of the conversation. Let's talk from the young age all the way coming up, what we might want to look at changing in this holiday season as the kids are home with us for the holidays.
Yeah, so as you said, the holidays are upon us. It's literally all around us. Children are home, but there's also a lot of activities that's happening where, sometimes our children might not be our main focus because there's shopping, there's cleaning, there's decorating, and there's activities. And it's a lot of adult-centered activities. Yeah. So what we want to be mindful of and what we want to remind parents of is to, when you're preparing, when you're planning, include your children in those. Supervision for your children is really important. Right? Incidents like children drowning and things like that is definitely what it is we want to try to avoid. And adequate supervision is, of course, very necessary. So we want to always make sure that we have eyes on our children. And what I want to just add in here is that you need to know who is supervising your child. So having an older child that's looking after a bunch of little ones is not what we consider to be adequate supervision. You need to know who is looking after your child. If you can't be there to take them along with you, then we need to make sure that that person, one, has experience in supervising children. We need to know what they have inside of their home. We need to know how many other children are going to be around. And what are the dangers? What are the possible dangers that we need to think about? Pools, water, any sorts of like cleaning products, anything unsafe in the home. Knives, sharp objects. We decorating right now. Let's be mindful of those decorations and that children can swallow small items. There are sharp objects all around. These are things that we want to be mindful of during this period when there's so much activities that's going on.
Now, I like that you started specifically in the home. You basically covered it where the sharp items, the decorative things that they may consume, well, swallow, those are definitely things we can look out for. And that speaks to a younger age group for sure. If we're talking about a little bit older, maybe not necessarily toddlers, but young children still, and even the teens at home, what are some of the things you might want to be mindful of for those age groups?
So there's so much things that we want to take into consideration here. One of the main things that I want to talk about with our older children is that when we're talking about supervision, we're also talking about the online supervision, right? So firstly, putting our children in front of a television or a tablet is not what we consider to be supervision, right? But we do know that during this time there is increased use of devices. They're playing games, they're online a lot more. Just because school is out, they're trying to relax a little bit. They might have a little bit more freedom. So we want to be mindful that predators also use this time to take advantage of vulnerable children. And unfortunately, in Trinidad and Tobago, our statistics really show that we have a lot of vulnerable children because the number of reported cases of abuse continue to be so high. Yeah. So we're looking at online safety. Be mindful of whom your children are speaking to online. And what we want to do with the older age groups in particular is teach them about how to keep themselves safe. Now that includes being at home and their physical safety, but it also includes their online safety. Things that they should be doing, things they should not be doing, such as giving out their personal information online, being mindful of whom they're speaking to and really teaching them about the potential dangers that they can incur. So, that 13-year-old boy that you think you're talking to might not be a 13-year-old boy at all, right? And we have to understand that, children tend to be a bit more vulnerable when they are not receiving the level of attention and emotional support that they should be getting. So that's the first thing I want parents to be mindful of. During this holiday period as well, what we want to do is ensure that we're attending to our children's emotional needs. You know, a lot of the activities are really adult focused. We're looking at Christmas parties, New Year's parties. I understand that carnival activities are already ongoing. And these things are largely adult centered. What we want to do is make time for our children as well, be there for them and be present with them. And we want people to remember that being present does not need to include presents.
I'm liking how we're thinking with this one.
Yeah, because, you know, we tend to think that everything needs to have a monetary aspect.
Tangible,
sort of tangible aspect. When what children really remember would be the time that we spend together. And that doesn't need to include a lot of money. Because, you know, oftentimes when we're talking about spending time with your children, doing things with your children, people say, well, I don't have any money for that, you know. It doesn't have to be about money. Let's just make the time to include them in the activities, include them in the decorating, in the going out and the shopping trips, but we have to be mindful that when we're doing that, we need to be looking after them.
Let's talk about taking them on that shopping trip, because we've covered the home, and now we're going out with them.
Right.
What do we need to be mindful of then and there?
Well, we always need to be mindful that our children should be our main priority. Grabbing something on sale and fighting somebody else for it is not. Right? Let's not be letting go of our toddlers' hands when we're shopping. Let's be mindful of, you know, very simple practices in terms of always making sure that they're very close to you. Engaging in conversation with them while you're out so that you know that they are right there. And engaging them in the process as well so that they don't feel like this is a chore that you are taking them on. Like, you know, it's a fun group activity that we can do together.
For sure. Good morning to my mom, who is the reason that I have a shopping addiction. But I also like the fact that you're talking about engaging conversation with them.
Yeah.
But we have seen in the past where we've encouraged children rather, should you be lost from mommy, look for this type of person, or policeman or policewoman. We are still engaging in those conversations as well, yes?
Of course, because I mentioned earlier in terms of helping to teach our children how to keep themselves safe. Because at some point they're going to grow up, they're going to be out there on their own, and they're going to need to know how to be safe.
Right.
So they need to know whom to identify if it's a person in uniform. If they're in a store, how to recognize somebody that might be working in the store to let them know, hey, I've lost my mom or my dad, or whomever is with the child.
Right.
They need to know about emergency numbers as well. Who to call in case of an emergency, what to do, like is there some sort of point that we can decide on if we do get lost, let's meet at this point. Yeah, so those are some of the general tips that we can give to parents for keeping children safe outside of the home as well.
Good things that we know, but we just need to be reminded of, really.
Of course, of course.
And so beyond the shopping experience, beyond the home, we are also seeing where there are actually kid-centric events now. Yes, the adults have their Christmas limes and their New Year's parties, but children now have children's shows and those sort of things that they can go to during this time as well. Any things that we have seen trending upwards on the negative side in group events for children, perhaps, that we should be mindful of?
What I will say in terms of group-centered events would be the same thing I was saying in terms of vulnerable children and predators. We have to remember that persons who are looking to take advantage of our children, and I'm trying to be very, PG in terms of the type of language that I'm using here, but essentially, predators are going to be using those sorts of opportunities to seek out children who might be unattended at such events, or to speak to your child in a manner that might lead to some grooming.
Right.
We have to be mindful that the predator does not look a particular way. They look like your everyday person standing up right around you, somebody who might be very friendly, somebody who might be very engaging. And, this is the type of things that we want to talk to our children about in terms of not speaking to strangers, not walking away with anyone, not taking things from anybody. That, if you are not there to really see what it is that's going on. Because there might be moments where they are unsupervised, and those are the moments that predators look to target. So yeah, teaching them about these type of things, even in child-centered events where they're around a lot of children, just being mindful of the adults who are around. And when I say adults, I mean older children as well.
Right.
It could really be anybody. So it's just about you being prepared, helping your children to be prepared. And in that way, we can sort of reduce the number of incidents involving children around this time.
That's definitely the goal. But I must ask, in terms of this time of year, do we see actual spikes in any particular types of cases or incidents that you want us to be more mindful of?
So what I will share with you is a really interesting thing that we have seen over the almost 10-year course of the Children's Authority being in operation, is that reported incidents tend to dip at this point in time. That's not to say that cases or incidents of abuse and neglect are not happening.
Right.
It's that they are not reported as much during this time. So the average number of cases that's usually reported to the authority every month might be between 300 to 400. We see a dip in this time that goes back up come January. Now, this might be for a couple of reasons. One, we're talking about persons being very occupied and very busy. Unfortunately, that tends to sometimes mean that we're not paying as much attention to our children and we're not talking to them as much, so that we're not really sure of things that might be happening. Come January, when school has resumed and things have sort of settled, this is when children are more able to report things to persons, to talk to their teachers, to sort of say what might have happened or what is continuing to happen. Right. And we do get the increase in the reports back at the January time.
So my biggest takeaway would have to be to maintain those lines of communication with your child.
Definitely.
Because across age groups, we will remind them of things they already know, but we will also take the opportunity to build that togetherness and that family that we feel in Christmas time through safety, and I love that for us. Things we could use, and we absolutely delight every time that you come to the set to give us that reminder, and look forward to the next conversation, Krista.
Sure.
Now, of course, you guys can check out the Children's Authority through the many hotlines and email addresses which will appear on your screen. But for now, we hope that you have a safe Christmas, and we get ready to take a break and come back with more after these messages.